The last thing you want to hear when you need your auto insurance most is a robot with countless irrelevant menu options. Which is why with USAA Auto Insurance, you'll get great service that is easy and reliable, all at the touch of a button. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
This is Rob Long with Martini Shot for The Ankler. There's an old story about a legendary studio president who came back from a meeting with a network after selling a television series. It was back when there was such a thing as pilot season, when TV studios would compete in a frenzy for time slots on a broadcast network schedule. It was like a really nasty gang fight when there's only one place for your TV shows, the broadcast airwaves of 3 or 4 big networks. The stakes are really high, and, you have to fight dirty. The universe of the TV business would gather in New York for a weeks-long series of presentations each network would give to the advertising community about their exciting lineup of fall TV shows. It was called Upfronts because this was when the networks would get money up front from advertisers. The business was so fat and rich back then, they didn't even bother coming up with a more elegant or discreet name for it. It was just Upfronts because that's how you got paid. They still sort of do Upfronts, I think. Kind of around May, like this time of year. But the business is so different now that I think it must be a little like when the flight attendant gives that safety talk on an airplane. Nobody's listening. Nobody cares. Everybody knows that information is not going to save you. But until a few years ago, those upfront presentations were often really elaborate. They made short, funny films, they had musical numbers, and the networks would spend more money on them sometimes than was perhaps advisable for corporations facing a shrinking audience and losing market share. With broadband expanding, Netflix just starting to move from being a DVD lending library to a network powerhouse. But show business, it's like all big legacy businesses. They keep doing the same thing the same way right up until the office doors are closed and the paychecks bounce. But the reason there were upfronts at all, and the reason that the fall TV season was and still kind of is somehow, in a way, kind of a big deal, it's because of another big legacy business, the car manufacturing companies. They always came out with the new models in September, and new products mean big new advertising budgets. So they'd want to know what's going to be on the air around the time the new, LeBaron is on the lot, to know how many spots on Mork and Mindy they're going to need to buy. So in the middle of the frenzied multi-billion-dollar horse trading for TV shows and time slots where everybody in the TV business in LA has decamped to hotel suites in New York to lobby and badger and bargain their way onto network schedules, some pilots, they get ordered, and some pilots die slowly, and some shows that don't even exist yet find themselves on the fall schedule, which is what happened when this studio president walked into the hotel suite after his meeting with the network. This was in the early 1990s, I think, or late 1980s. The suite was filled with his staff, his vice presidents, and there were always more than one, were working the phones, trying to sell more comedies and more dramas all over town, and his lower-level staff were manning the dry erase board, shifting magnetic tiles around, each one labeled with the title of a series, as they tried to get a picture of the fall TV lineup for all of the networks. And there probably were even a few writer-producers hanging around, eating room service platters and wondering about the fate of their pilots. So into this, the studio president walked in. "I just sold one of our shows to the network," he said. "It's the one set in the world of the U.S. military, starring Lou Gossett Jr. So here's what we need by tomorrow morning. We need a show set in the world of the U.S. military, and we need Lou Gossett Jr." Which, the legend goes, they got. Now, I don't really remember, or if I ever knew, how that project fared ultimately. I mean, it couldn't have been a success, right? Or we would be able to remember the name of the show, but that doesn't really matter. What matters is that the studio executive made a sale. He got the right to take a swing, and there's only one way to hit a home run. It's that first you have to take a swing. The fact that there wasn't an actual show to sell, an actual script even, not at the exact moment he sold it anyway, well, that's what in other businesses they just call just-in-time inventory. I mean, look, there's no reason why that show couldn't be a hit. We spent a lot of time in Hollywood developing ideas and assembling the elements and buying up intellectual property, all in an attempt to make a business that's really not rational into a rational, plannable enterprise. But sometimes it just takes someone walking into a room and selling a show that does not exist on the fly, just figuring it all out later. Okay, yes, in this particular instance, that show didn't end up being a success, but then neither do a lot of shows that have expensive pilots and an A-list cast. Cigar chomping studio presidents seem like a thing of the past, and they really are a thing of the past, but I wouldn't bet on a studio that didn't have someone there who could walk into a room and sell a show set in the world of the U.S. military, starring Lou Gossett Jr., without a script or a show or Lou Gossett Jr. I mean, you never know. My motto in show business is, hey, could work. Sometimes you don't need a script to make a show. Sometimes, in fact, having the script is the reason the show doesn't get made in the first place. For example, a big television network signed a major Broadway star to do a series. This happened quite often in the past, actually. The rigors of stage work and the ability to charm an audience are ideal training for a star of a half-hour comedy. So with the star, suitably dazzled by flattery and woozy with gold fever, the network searches around for a writer. They're looking for auspices, was what the industry term used to be. And like most industry terms, it's neither accurate nor really actually literate. Auspices around here mean not just a writer, but an uber writer, a guy who will not only create a series and write the pilot episode, but who will also executive produce the resulting, one hopes, enormously enriching hit. The term people use now mostly is like showrunner or uber showrunner or brand, as in the Shonda Rhimes brand or the Greg Berlanti imprint. But in all cases, it's basically the same. People, whether they're money people or studio people or on-screen people, they like to sign up to do projects with names or auspices that they trust. Because remember, nobody knows how it's all going to turn out until it's already going on. And at that point, they've already signed away years of their lives. So before you take the leap, especially if you're an actor, you want to at least know who you're leaping with. So the network finds some pretty impressive auspices, a guy with a hit show already on the air, and they set up a deal with a Broadway actor to do a show with this successful writer. But unfortunately, this successful writer cannot write. He's just awful. He's terrible. His scripts are unfunny, childish stacks of paper with stories so conventional they're almost confusing, and jokes so flat you can't distinguish them from stage directions. Now, how this tiny talent of a person came to such worldly success is an example of the efficiency of the Hollywood economic model, because you can get anybody to rewrite anything. Or as the network executives like to say, we can get somebody to plug the funny in. Now, a few years before, this guy had written a lousy script that somehow limped onto the network's schedule during an upfront trading session, like the one that almost made Lou Gossett Jr. another TV star. A crucial late addition to that cast, we can always plug some funny person into the cast, I can hear them saying, pushed that show into hit status. But, the guy still can't write, but he doesn't have to, because he has a writing staff that can write, but with millions of dollars in the bank, he has forgotten that he can't write. He has forgotten that he's lucky, not good. So the guy writes the script for the Broadway actor, and he gives it to a writer friend of his to whom he has promised a staff writing job on the series. This, by the way, is who I heard the story from. Well, what do you think? The bad writer asks his friend, and his friend has a choice now. If he tells the truth, the writer may be so furious that he takes back the job offer on the spot. But if he opts for mindless flattery, the writer may actually give the script to the Broadway actor as it is, messing up the deal, also resulting in his unemployment. It's a classic Hollywood ethical dilemma. Either choice ends up in a job search. Now, the friend chooses the middle path, the typical Hollywood way. He tells the writer a half-truth. It's pretty good, he says slowly, hoping to be let off the hook. I mean, it's first draft, right? Nope, says the writer. It's fine the way it is. At least I think so. Don't you? Oh, yeah, says the friend, mindful of his house payments. It's just that, shouldn't the network, see it first, maybe give it a second pass or something, just like a polish or something, just tweak it a little here and there, you know? The writer does not give the script to the network first, and he does not tweak or polish it either. Instead, he flies to New York. He presents the whole muddled, jarring, monotonous raft of dreck to the Broadway actor in his dressing room between the matinee and the evening performance, and by the time his plane lands back at LAX, the Broadway actor has read the script, called his agent, pulled out of the deal and issued a press release announcing his decision to concentrate on the arena of feature films. That's how long ago this was. There was such a thing as an arena of feature films. I can't believe the dumbass showed him the script, the network executives fumed. He actually thinks he's a good writer. I tried to tell him you're not a good writer. I said you don't have to be a good writer. We can get somebody to be a good writer for you. And the guy says to me, the network executive says, then why have me do the show at all? So I told him, it's because we like your auspices. Which, when you think about it, makes a certain kind of sense. Except to be honest, and I did not read that script, so I have no idea if it really was terrible or not. Maybe it was. But part of me thinks, if I could just sit with that Broadway star, who, by the way, is not my star anymore, and certainly is not fielding offers from networks, I would have said, I don't know, could work. I like the auspices. Which is all to say, I would have made a pretty good executive back when that was a fun job to have. And that's it for this week. Next week, Blood Feuds. For The Ankler, this is Rob Long with Martini Shot.